Good morning and welcome to our 2024 informational webinar. My name is Dr. Libby Saunier and I'm the Executive Director of the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. The Policy Institute for Children is a nonpartisan independent source of data, research, and information for policymakers and stakeholders on issues related to early care and education for our young children ages birth to 5. We appreciate you taking the time to join us. Today's webinar will provide you, as a candidate for public office, with information on the current state of early care and education in our state. Our goal is for you to leave this webinar with a better understanding of early care and education and its importance on your community and across the state. We have a full agenda. However, we will have time for Q&A at the end. Please type your questions in the Zoom Q&A box, and we will address them at the end of the presentation. To get us started, let's look at why early care and education matters. Early childhood education supports children's learning and development from birth to age 5. This time in a child's life is particularly important as their brain is developing at peak speed, making more than 1 million new neurological connections every second. 80% of a child's brain is developed by age 3 and reaches 90% of its adult volume by age 5. A child's environment and experiences during these early years continue to shape the child's brain and set the foundation for the future success in school, the workplace, and members of their community. To share more about the impact of early care and education on outcomes, I will turn it over to the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children's Policy and Research Director, Madeline Carr-Spatson.
Thank you, Libby, and good morning, everyone. Studies show that when children experience high-quality childcare, they are more likely to enter kindergarten ready to succeed, graduate high school, have higher earnings in adulthood, have better health outcomes, and are less likely to have interactions with the criminal justice system. We have even seen this in studies from a Louisiana pre-K program called LA4. The Council for a Better Louisiana found in their longitudinal study that participating children had significantly higher rates of kindergarten readiness, were 45% less likely to need special education services, and consistently outperformed other children on 4th and 8th grade tests. But what is early care and education really? Children in high-quality early care and education, or child care programs, experience a developmentally appropriate academic curriculum that aligns with the Department of Education's early learning and development standards and are taught by credentialed and evaluated educators in a resource-rich, nurturing environment, much like in our K-12 classrooms. There are a number of publicly funded early care and education programs in Louisiana, like Head Start and LA4, which some of you may already be familiar with. The main state program that serves children ages 3 years old and younger is the Child Care Assistance Program, or CCAP. These programs serve working families statewide that have parents who are employed, in school, or looking for work. However, due to insufficient funding, we currently only serve about 15% of in-need children ages birth to 3 statewide. And the waitlist for CCAP today is the highest it's been in years, with approximately 6,000 children waiting for a child care seat, some of them waiting for years now. In our rural communities, gaining access to high-quality care is even more difficult, as there are often few to no high-quality child care centers within a reasonable distance for families. To share about the impact lack of access has on our children, families, and our state, I would like to introduce Dr. Candace Weber, Director of Partnerships at LPIC.
Thank you, Maddie. So the lack of access to affordable, high-quality childcare has a major impact on family income stability and our state's economy. If parents don't have a safe place for their kids to go during the day, they can't go to work or school. Because 2/3 of our children in Louisiana have their single parent or both parents in the workforce, the reality is that our employers rely on the ability for parents to have access to childcare. Without reliable childcare, parents miss work, they leave or change jobs, they come in late, they have to leave early, and in some cases, parents are faced with a difficult decision whether or not to exit the workforce altogether. These childcare breakdowns cost Louisiana's state economy $1.3 billion annually. However, every dollar we invest in high quality early care and education programming yields at least a 13% return on investment when you think about the outcomes that occur over the course of the child's life. And so this makes it one of the best investments our elected officials could make, according to economists. Creating a robust, sustainable, and high quality early care and education system is a responsibility at all levels of government, local, state, and federal. And in Louisiana, federal funding makes up the majority of funding for early care and education programs. And so on this chart, the federal funding for Louisiana early care and education, like our CCAP and LA4 program, is shown in blue. Louisiana has recently increased state investments in early care and education programs, especially for CCAP between 2019 and 2023. And so that state funding is shown in orange. However, this past legislative session in 2024, despite the long CCAP wait lists of eligible families, the legislature voted to decrease state CCAP investments by $9 million. And so what this means is that 800 children will lose their child care spot over the course of this year. And so with 78,000 in-need children aged birth to 3 without access to care, decreasing state investment is detrimental for our kids, our parents, and our economy. Now, for local communities willing to make their own investments, we do have the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund, which is an excellent opportunity to benefit from additional state support for local priorities by providing matching funds for local early care and education investments. The Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund is the state's incentive fund that offers local communities in Louisiana a dollar-for-dollar match for expanding access to quality early care and education for children who need it most. There are several parishes and localities across the state that have established their own dedicated funding streams through passing millages, raising philanthropic dollars, allocating funds from local city budgets, and other methods to create sustainable funding that expands childcare access at the local level. And so you can see which parishes have leveraged these funds and how much on our new dashboard on our website, policyinstitutela.org. And, we know there's no one size fits all way to fundraise for the fund's matching dollars. While some parishes like Orleans chose to levy a millage, there are other ways to leverage the state matching funds. And so today we are excited to have 3 folks with us from 3 different organizations around the state. You'll hear from Fairshea Perkins from Point Capee, Derek Toops from New Orleans, and Christy Gustafson from Caddo Parish to share with us how they have leveraged local funds to receive a match from the Early Childhood Education Fund. So as you listen, again, if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A box. So to kick us off and get started, I'm going to introduce Fairshea Perkins. She is the Executive Director of the Point Capee Early Childhood Coalition. Welcome, Fairshea, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Candace. I really appreciate the warm welcome. I'm excited to talk to you folks today about Point Capee Parish's use of the Early Childhood Education Fund and those matching funds for how we've been able to increase access to quality care for our infants and toddlers. Point Capee Parish is a rural, tight-knit community with a total population of almost 21,000 people, including 1,106 children under the age of 5. About half of these children, 558, meet the definition of economically disadvantaged, according to the most recent eligibility data from the Louisiana Department of Education. 27% of our children live in poverty, and 55% of our families live below the ALICE threshold. That means asset limited, income constrained employed, what we used to call the working poor. And childcare costs represent 1/3 of median income in the region. We do not have a plethora of childcare sites available for our families. We have 6 Type 3 childcare sites and 1 FCC provider who accept public funding. Yet, despite these considerable headwinds, Point Capee ranks second in the state for infant and toddler access to care. We serve 27% of our at-risk infants and toddlers, compared with 11% statewide. And we offer universal pre-K with 100% coverage of our 3s and 4s. We began as a 501c3 nonprofit, and we organized to share information, connect partners, and work with the community to provide the best environment for our youngest children and their families to be happy, healthy, resilient, and successful. And where we've been able to see a substantial amount of success is by leveraging a variety of funding streams, private and public, state and federal, to sustain our work, including Child Care Resource and Referral Agency contract, school readiness tax credit donations from private businesses, working with Capital Area United Way, Innovation Grant, and other foundations, as well as private donations from businesses and individuals. For our funding sources for our preschool, we've been able to utilize Head Start, LA4, 8G, IDA Part B 619, and SECD, as well as some local funding. And for infants and toddlers, not only have we utilized CCAP, but we've also utilized CCAP B to 3, the ECEF local and matching funds, and then supported quality in all of our cares by offering coaching, technical assistance, and training to any who request it, supported by funds from the school readiness tax credit. Why is this so important for a rural parish like Point Gapee? It's because childcare affects our businesses and our community. You see, in Region 2 parishes, including Point Gapee, parents are more likely to be fired or reduce hours due to childcare issues. This is something that you can both see in the data as well as in anecdotal conversations with business leaders in healthcare, in education, and in small businesses. Childcare is a two-generation workforce solution, which is why our investments in the Early Care and Education Fund are so crucial for sustaining the workforce, not just of today, but also tomorrow. The school readiness tax credits have been a crucial way that we have increased investment in our community for early childhood care and education. In 2007, the Louisiana legislature passed a unique package of tax credits known as school readiness tax credits, and this law became effective in 2008. Included in this package is a dollar-for-dollar refundable Louisiana state tax credit for businesses, up to $5,000 annually. Point Gapee has been designated by the state to be the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency and is authorized to collect these SRTC donations. What this does is it allows businesses to direct where their tax dollars go. If you owe $5,000 on your taxes and utilize school readiness tax credits, you have essentially reduced your tax burden to zero. We have found overall that the importance of investing in early childhood education has a significant runway in our community. When we surveyed businesses, approximately 80% did not know that the credit existed. And when we asked questions around the Early Childhood Education Fund, there was even less knowledge in the community around it. All that to say, early childhood education is so important for our community, and we find there's a lot of people who are starting to learn, beginning to invest, and our community is reaping substantial rewards from investing in high quality seats and prioritizing them for our at-risk families. Thank you so much, Candace.
Thank you, Fairshade. Great information. And so now I'm excited to welcome Derek Toops. He is the Deputy Director, Center for Early Childhood Advancement at Agenda for Children in Orleans Parish. Derek, all yours.
Thank you, Candace. So Agenda for Children, we wear a number of different hats in Orleans Parish. We are the Child Care Resource and Referral Agency for the southeast of the state. So we provide professional development and coaching, as well as technical assistance to a couple of parishes down here. And then we are also the lead agency and Ready Start Network for Orleans Parish. And that is the work that I lead. And part of that is our millage implementation that Candace, I was reading Christy's name, Candace, that Candace introduced earlier. So I just want to underscore some of the things that you've already heard, the importance of early childhood, because as we conceptualize getting something on the ballot a couple of years ago, it was really important for us to make sure that voters, as well as our community, came together with a shared understanding of why early childhood education is important. So this is the same graph that Candace showed earlier. We know that early childhood, investing in early childhood education is just a really good economic decision. So the next slide will show what Candace had shared about up to a 13% annual return on investment. And then in similar studies, these are longitudinal studies on the impact of high quality early care and education services to children. Children who were in those settings as adults were 4 times as likely to graduate from college versus a control group. So whenever we invest in early care and education, it is a long-term benefit, in addition to the short-term workforce benefits for families. We see increased high school graduation rates, college attendance, earning potential, even better health outcomes. So there are physiological benefits to high quality early childhood education as well, in addition to decreased incarceration. So there are really truly a myriad of benefits for investing in early care and education. Next slide. Similar to what Farishay mentioned about just the economic burden that a lot of our families have to shoulder, in Orleans Parish, the average or the family of 3 who are earning at that ALICE or below the ALICE threshold would spend 43%. That's almost half of their pre-tax income on infant care alone, leaving just $12,600 for other necessities such as food, housing, and transportation. So we know that for families, being able to offer publicly subsidized early care and education is very important. All right, next slide. And so whenever we are talking about, or we're talking about early care and education, I've shared a little bit about kind of why we need it. And it's not just offering early care and education, it's offering quality early care and education. So we really define quality by looking at 3 main things. One is our workforce. So well-prepared and adequately compensated teachers, low teacher to child ratios, as well as enriching environments. So a little bit more about those on the next slides. So whenever we look at ratios, we'll start from the bottom and go up. So for infant 1 and 2-year-old classrooms, the program that we run, which is the City Seats program here in New Orleans, we have 1 teacher to every 4 children. For our 3-year-olds, 1 teacher to 8 children. And then in the typical classroom or kindergarten classroom, you'll see 1 teacher to 20 children. So we know that more one-on-one time between teachers and children, we see better cognitive and a host of social benefits. So we are embedding quality in some of our policies as we stand up our programs. And then the median childcare worker earns less than $20,000 a year here in Louisiana, which is less than $10 an hour. So a lot of our teachers in the early childhood workforce, unfortunately, qualify for some of the public subsidies that the families of the children that they are teaching. So we are really trying to increase compensation, and we are grateful for the work that LPIC is doing in that arena. And then we're seeing a lot of attrition among our teachers. So 1 in 3 preschool teachers in the state is turning over from year to year, and 1 in 2 toddler teachers. And so I know my time's wrapping up. So what we did is in New Orleans is we brought before our voters a millage, which is a property tax. So you can go ahead and skip to slide 33, Victoria. So the important thing to know about our millage is that it actually failed in 2018. And so this was not just, oh, we had an idea and then we put it on the ballot and it got approved. No, this is multiple years, over 5 years of coalition building, educating our community, getting folks involved, business leaders, of course, our legislators, our politicians, and our early care and education leaders. So in New Orleans, we have over $21 million per year, which is generated through property taxes for the next 20 years that is being invested in early childhood education. So paired with that early care and education fund that Candace mentioned, we are really proud that by dollar amount, we have the 14th largest local investment in early care and education in the whole country, and the 4th largest relative to population size. So whenever we think about leveraging state dollars with local investment, we can truly make a large impact. And then just to put a little bit of shading on the next slide, with the map that Candace showed, these are the other parishes that were approved for the ECF fund this past year. So the number of parishes taking advantage of that has more than doubled. Hopefully some of you who are running for office see your parishes on here. And if you don't, that would be a great way for you to continue to advocate to increase early care and education in your parishes. Am I out of time, Candace? We can skip me if so. No? Okay. The next slide just shows over time. Again, this did not happen overnight. So from 2018, which is whenever that first millage was introduced, all the way to 2024, which is this year, you can see just the dramatic increase of both local and state funding that has grown over time. So we started with just an investment of 50 seats. So that was a couple, maybe $100,000 or $200,000. I don't remember the exact figure. The state brought on B2 3, so we're able to see some more investment there. And then in 2021, you'll see the dark blue next to that light blue, that 200 and 200. That's whenever we started leveraging the ECEF funds. And then in 2023, last year, that's whenever things got real and we had the first year of our millage implementation. So we were able to serve with the state, our local investment and state funding, over 2,000 children. And we are incredibly proud that we are able to do that. And we also know that that is a monumental task. So if we go to the next slide, a little bit about how we're spending those local dollars. 80% of our millage, so our locally raised funds, go toward subsidizing 1,000 high quality seats. It's around $15,000 per seat with wraparound support. So we utilize the early Head Start and Head Start model. We know that in addition to providing high quality care during the day, that children are going to need a number of potentially mental health or just general health wraparounds. So we have a number of community partnerships so that we can offer the robust benefits that children need. And then 20% of funding is going toward what I call our capacity building. So we are looking at, since we are serving more children, we need greater physical infrastructure. So center expansion and startup grants. So we want to incentivize providers to either open new centers or expand existing ones so that they can serve more children. We're really reaching out to our families to make sure that they know what is accessible to them. We also work with NOLA public schools to ensure that enrollment is as seamless as possible, which is not always the case whenever we're blending a number of different public funding streams with different eligibility requirements. We're really leaning into teacher training and professional development to ensure that our workforce is as educated as possible. We also are really proud to offer a wage enhancement. So that's in direct response to that figure of teachers earning less than $20,000 a year. We're able to earmark some of our funding to provide around $2,500 per year to teachers working in Type 3 early learning programs. So whenever you're making less than $20,000 and you get about an eighth of your salary of an increase, that is pretty significant. So we're really proud of that as well. And then my final slide is just a little bit more about some of the capacity building initiatives that we're focusing on. So I mentioned our educator supports. We're also working on a workforce pipeline, so recruiting and retaining teachers. We are expanding programs. So in addition to physical infrastructure, we have a new leader fellowship for directors of early learning programs who are in their first 5 years of operation. That's enrollment and family support I mentioned, comprehensive wraparound services that I mentioned, and then accountability and communications. With so many public dollars at stake, we want to make sure that we are communicating the benefit that we're able to do with those dollars and socializing them back to voters. So we worked with the Power Coalition for Equity and Justice last year, who helped us get the millage passed. And what they spent last year doing is going door to door to those same folks who voted for the millage to say, hey, as a result of your vote, this is what we've been able to do. We're incredibly proud of what we're doing in New Orleans, and we are always happy to answer questions and talk with folks from across the state to act as a thought partner. So thanks a lot, Candace.
Thank you, Derek. Such great information. So again, any questions, please put those in the Q&A box. But next up, I'd like to introduce Christy Gustafson. She is the CEO of the Community Foundation of North Louisiana. So Christy, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you. So I came to the Community Foundation in late 2017, And when I started here, it was our aim at the Community Foundation to see how we could utilize our grant dollars in the most efficient and effective way possible. And one of the things that we determined when I first came to the foundation was that so many of our children in Caddo Parish and the MSA were not kindergarten ready. And so we decided to take a look at that issue as a whole community and formed the North Louisiana Early Childhood Education Summit, which consisted of about 70 attendees. And this is anybody ranging from the mayor of Shreveport to the chief of police, to the sheriff, to business owners, to members of the chambers of commerce, you name it. We invited folks and they were there, and including a few folks that are actually legislators now, which is fantastic, and went through all of those statistics that you saw early on in the presentation about early brain development and why it's so important to young people. So if y'all can advance the slide. I think you'll go 2 up. One more. So here were our, oh, sorry. Go back one. So these were our percent of incoming kindergartners arriving kindergarten ready at the time. And you can see 2018 is when we started to take a look at this. We had a small uptick in 2019 and then again a dip. So we've decreased a good bit over the last 10 years. So this has really been a focus. So next slide are all the people that came together for that summit, not all of them, but many of them. And we signed an agreement to say that we as a community were going to make early childhood development a priority, not only for all the work that we do, but also a funding priority. And you can see now Secretary Matlock in that picture. You can see the mayors of Shreveport-Bossier, the school superintendents, the DA. So that's, it was a great range of people. Next slide. So what we decided to do was if we were going to increase and take advantage of the Louisiana matching dollars, we wanted to follow the Community Foundation outcomes, and we used an external evaluator to look at our outcomes. So we have just in that first couple of years had a 65% increase in ECE enrollment for children 0 to 3, a 95% increase in children 0 to 2. We had 10 new classrooms open up just that first year, resulting in increased revenue for those centers. And 2 years of data so far demonstrates that children attending the ECE centers, of which there are 55 in Caddo Parish, so we were extremely lucky there, are far more kindergarten ready than their peers who do not. Next slide. So this was our increase over time from the 2019 school year until the 2024. We have focused our scholarship efforts on children from the infant stage to 3-year-olds. And you can see we've had large increases from infant went to 72 to 219, 1-year-olds 121 to 342, 2-year-olds 205 to 354. And then the 3-year-olds we've increased from 1034 to 1067. So we're thrilled with those numbers. Next slide. So what we have been doing is tracking the kindergarten readiness scores by pre-kindergarten experience for the last few years. We're getting ready to pull our 3rd year of data, and it's been tremendously exciting. So you'll see on the left-hand side, these are the fall 2023 reading scores. We don't have this year's yet, of kindergartners by their pre-kindergarten experience. And this is on the left-hand side, you can see this is the percent of students who met or achieved the reading benchmark. So children who stayed home are on the left-hand side in the blue bar, and you can see about 16% of the children who did not attend any preschool met or exceeded the reading benchmark. You can see my child care center kids, the type 3 child care center kids that are receiving scholarships, are almost at 40% met or exceeded the benchmark. And then just for comparison, we added in private high dollar preschools. So notably, our kids that are in the center bar in green are keeping up pretty well with kids who are going to private preschool. And considering the poverty demographics of those children in the green bar versus the kids in the blue bar, we are absolutely thrilled with those results. Next slide. So these are the fall math scores for the same year, and you can see we're having the exact same results or really similar results. Now, this is just average percentile of students on the math portion of the kindergarten readiness exam. This is how they report them. So you'll see the kids that stay at home have not had any childcare experience are just over 40% on that math achievement, whereas our kids in the childcare realm are between 62, 63, 64% right there. And then just over 80 for our preschool kids. So again, our kids are doing way better than their peers who are staying at home and really keeping up pretty well with the children who are going to private pre-K. The reason that we are assembling this data is because we hope sometime in the very near future that we are able to achieve permanent funding in one way or another in the way that New Orleans did. And we really felt like this data was going to help us let the community see how well this sending children to high quality preschool works. Next slide. So this is our total investment from Caddo Parish over the last 3 years, and it excites me to no end. So you can see the green bar is the actual amount of money that the Community Foundation, my office, has raised to put towards the match. The city of Shreveport has very generously pitched in quite a bit of money too. You see 3.87 million to get us that match. The red bar or the red piece of pie is the match that we've received from the state, that state funding. And then blue funding below is funding that the Caddo Parish Schools has received through grants. So all of that put together has resulted in an investment in just under 20 million. You can go to the next slide for the entire community. And we're just absolutely thrilled with that result. We're getting tons of buy-in from local donors. They love the idea that if they donate $1 to the Community Foundation Early Childhood Fund, there's a dollar for dollar match coming from the state. And they also love that they can say, I'd like this dollar to be utilized specifically for Caddo Parish early childhood education. So we are currently working on permanent funding sources plan and are going to roll out something new and exciting in January of 2025.
Thank you, Christy. I think at this time, we're going to turn it over to Sadie.
Hi, my name is Sadie Becknell, and I'm the Government Affairs Director and General Counsel for the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children. I will be providing some information that may support you all when the topic of early care and education comes up. We at the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children want to ensure that you all are well equipped during these important discussions. Investment in early care and education is popular all over the state, even in some of the most conservative parts. Next slide, please. Nearly 80% of likely voters across Louisiana think taking action to make sure working families have access to affordable quality child care should be an important priority for our state this year. Most voters agree that providing greater support for working families with young children, which includes birth to 4, is a very good investment of taxpayer money. This support holds true across all regions of the state, as well as across all party lines. Access to quality early care and education has been linked to lower crime rates. So therefore, by investing in early care and education, we can work towards having safer communities. Now, with that being said, I know some of you are wondering, what can I do? Well, I'm glad you asked. Having discussions with your constituents regarding their early care and education needs are imperative. Make your position on early care and education known by possibly incorporating in your speeches, website, and social media posts. And you can also help increase access to quality early care and education by expanding on and dedicate new recurring funding to amplify access to high quality early care and education. Now, this doesn't just apply to state policymakers, but it also is applicable to federal and local policymakers as well. Federal policymakers can address this issue of funding by advocating for increases in the Child Care Development Block Grant. State policymakers can work on increasing the state's general fund appropriation to child care programs such as the CCAP program, or by allocating one-time funds to the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund. And lastly, but not least, local policymakers can invest local dollars into their communities, like the Shreveport Early Start Initiative has done by leveraging the state local match from the Louisiana Early Childhood Education Fund. And in addition to new funding, you can also review existing funding for inefficiencies, and if there are any, redirect those funds to early care and education. And you can also commit to early care and education being a top priority for any new or expended revenue. Next slide, please. I know that this seems like a lot of information to remember, but as you continue to campaign this season, please consider the Louisiana Policy Institute for Children as a nonpartisan nonprofit source of independent data and research. We are always here to help, and most importantly, we are here for those babies. And as previously mentioned by my colleague, this is also a workforce issue, and therefore we encourage you to visit www.readylouisiana.org in order to familiarize yourself with the business community's positions on these crucial issues. Now I will turn it back over to Libby to lead the question and answer part of the webinar.
Thanks so much, Sadie. At this time, we'll begin our question and answer portion. And looking for questions, and I see one popping up. It says, besides seats, what else can funding for early care and education go towards? I'd like to field that question. I'm looking at Derek because besides seats, if you think about wraparound services and those types of things, and then out from there, it can go to Fairshade.
Sure, sounds good. So aside from seats, as I mentioned earlier, I refer to what I call capacity building, right? How do we increase capacity for our early care and education ecosystem? So we have really leaned into workforce development this year. So a couple of things that we have done over the past year, we have done a recruitment campaign. So we've used some of our ECF dollars as well as our millage dollars to put together a really heartwarming campaign, because we can't really use compensation as a recruitment strategy for folks. So we've recruited folks. We've stood up an early childhood job board. We've partnered with a local nonprofit who has a K-12 job board that is widely used to add an early childhood section. So we now have a marketplace, for lack of a better term, for all of our providers to get a profile, post jobs, and then that's where we're driving our recruitment traffic. We have worked with Delgado Community College as well as a number of local high schools to explore what a dual enrollment pathway would look like. So I know a number of other parishes have been successful with standing up a dual enrollment pathway in high school, so that along with a high school degree, students can graduate with an early childhood ancillary certificate. So we're hoping to start that next year. I mentioned the wage enhancement that we're using to supplement wages for our early care in education teachers. We've done a number of small grants. So things related to, we've done quality grants to help centers purchase educational materials, book supplies, whatever is relevant to their context. We've done some facility grants, as I mentioned. So improving the health and safety from just a very baseline of the physical environment, or maybe expanding to a playground, things like that. There's a whole range of things, and I would be happy. I could literally spend a whole hour explaining or talking about all the things that we've done, but those are just a couple that come to mind.
Thanks so much. Fairshade.
Thank you so much, Derek. I love that list because it's so true. Every teacher wants the best for their students, and when we can de-hassle them and provide that they need to be successful, our teachers can really flourish. Similar to Derek, we also worked with our Ready Start Network Coalition. Our coalition members, they identified that one thing that was so important to them and to parents was for their teachers to be professionals and to receive the compensation that they deserved as professionals, and to also be appropriately credentialed. And so we've been able to support that similar to Agenda for Children through our teacher support grants, but also through offering additional professional development. We want to see every single teacher, like Derek said, with the Early Childhood Ancillary Certificate. These are professionals, and we want to support them on that journey.
Thanks so much, Farishay. A question came in the chat. Have you considered maintaining a cap of 10 students per one teacher across the board? That would not be best practice, especially if you think about one teacher for 10 infants. And so the ratios that are in place for licensing are for health and safety, and best practice guidelines are within Head Start and Early Head Start, if you think about 4:1 and those types of ratios. So that's a great question. Another question that has come up, and I'm going to kick this to you, Candace. What do business groups like LABI, our Louisiana Association for Business and Industry, think about early childhood education? Do they support it?
Yes, great question. And so for those who may not be familiar, LABI is our state chamber, and they do support early care education because they understand the workforce issue that you've heard on this call. When there are breakdowns in childcare, parents can't get to work. They have to show up late. Sometimes they have to leave early. And, as I mentioned earlier, sometimes they have to leave the workforce altogether. And then understanding the overall hit to our economy, $1.3 billion annually. That's billion with the B. And even, LABI has partnered with us with the launch of our business workforce calculator tool, where we know at an aggregate level that Louisiana businesses lose $762 million when they're collectively, when employees can't find access to quality childcare. So again, just really understanding the economics of childcare and the business case. And so our state chamber is on board with supporting and increased investments in early care and education.
Thanks so much, Candace. Another question that popped up was, what's the best way for elected officials to connect with parents and providers? I'm going to start us off and then say, y'all go for it. Parents and providers are everywhere you look. And so I think having a conversation with your potential constituents about the importance of early care and education and the importance of how do we support families in this state is a worthwhile conversation that I can't think of a parent or a child care provider that they would want to have that conversation with you. But who would like to add to that?
I'll chime in.
Oh,
Go ahead, Sadie, and then I'll go after.
I'm just gonna add a little something quick. Another good way elected officials can connect with parents and providers is utilizing organizations like Louisiana Policy Institute, who can set up site visits so they can see firsthand what these centers are doing and have conversations with those providers as well as those parents. So I'll turn it over to you, Derek, to elaborate.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to suggest the site visits. Another resource in addition to LPIC is whoever your local lead agency is. So every parish has a designated lead agency that knows intimately the providers, definitely some of the parents, and just the inner workings of early childhood in your parish. So if you need to know who the lead agency is, LPIC can definitely connect you to them. But I think it's good conversation just to kind of understand the local landscape for you.
and I just really want to echo what both Sadie and Derek shared. Your local community, those who are help leading your early childhood network, they know who the players are and they know who to connect to. And so we're more than happy to help facilitate you to get to your local contacts if you don't know, but would really urge you to reach out, because this is where the rubber meets the road, and you understand what families and childcare providers' needs are in our state. The last question that came up are, what are some ways to include support for early care and education in your platform as you're running for office? So what are some ways that you can do that? We've seen in the past that candidates have put it in their platform, on their social media, on their website. They use talking points, those types of things. Derek?
Yes, I would say in addition to just advocating for greater access to early care and education in general, is really understand the local context and what the need is. So For example, we work with St. Charles Parish, lots of petrochemical industry there. And what a need that we heard from them is a need for later hours care so that families who are doing late shifts, that they have care beyond 6 p.m. And then, if you are in Lafourche Parish or somewhere else that is a little bit more rural, then their needs are going to look a little bit different because there might not be geographic access to care. So really listen to the parents for what they need, listen to those lead agencies, and see what the local context is.
And we would say put it on your platform, because that's how we're able to see and track across the state who really is invested in early care and education. And to Derek's point, and everybody's point, is get to know that local context. But we really want to understand who's saying what and how they're saying it, to make sure that we as a community can support you in your efforts to serve your local community as an elected official. So thank you all for all the question and answers. Thank you all for joining us, and thank you for those thoughtful questions. We hope that you walk away with a better understanding of how you can truly make a difference in the lives of our youngest learners. If you are interested in hearing more about the experiences of childcare owners, we invite you to join us this Thursday, August 29th, for the release of our annual provider survey findings. You can register for the webinar by scanning the QR code on the side. It will share a lot about the realities that our childcare providers are facing day in and day out. Lastly, we encourage you to reach out to info@policyinstitute.org if you'd like to be introduced to an early care and education provider in your community. And again, we thank you so much for your time, and take care.